The Emergencies Act will give more powers to Canada's banks to monitor the flow of funds to protesters. Protesters have been in the capital for nearly 20 days now. And a big question has been, where is the funding coming from? So CTV Toronto's John Woodward has been looking into this story. He joins us this morning. Welcome, John.
Thanks very much for having me.
So you took a deep dive into the money that's been pouring into the Christian crowdfunding website, Give, Send, Go. This is the site that convoy protesters turned to after the GoFundMe monies were halted. Here's the Give, Send, Go site this morning. It's offline after a hack revealed 92,000 names of donors. You went through these numbers. What's the breakdown of who are the major contributors and where's the money coming from?
Yeah, we went through almost 100,000 donors revealed in a leak by unknown people. We had to do our own digging to ensure that these numbers were accurate. What you see was, in terms of donors, about 55% of them are American. That dwarfs the number that are Canadian. That's only about 39%. There are a number of other countries in the mix as well. But that was what we were seeing on that front. In terms of the money itself, about 51% is from Canada. 43% comes from American addresses. But regardless, there is a substantial contribution to these protests coming from outside the country. And when you look at the comments that were in this data set, a number of them were very religious. This is a religious fundraising organization. Some of them were associated with fringe movements. And let's not forget the substantial grassroots political affiliation that people actually have. COVID is an international problem and has affected people in different countries in different ways. People in the United States, in an honest way, are also feeling common cause with the protests that are in Ottawa right now. There are also American politicians who have been pumping this, for lack of a better word. Ted Cruz, Donald Trump Jr., other people like that have been calling out to their networks with this Give, Send, Go link, asking for donations. And that's one reason why you see so many American supporters.
One of the concerns that was mentioned yesterday at the Prime Minister's press conference of why they invoked the Emergencies Act was because of foreign contributions to fund the protests and the illegal blockades. So do we know what happens to those who donated to the protests as of today?
As of, it may even be as of yesterday, we have heard reports of frozen bank accounts from the Emergencies Act declaration already. There was a Toronto-based organization that publicized that it was planning to raise about $100,000 for the truckers at a Canadian bank. They attempted to withdraw that money and they failed. The bank account had been frozen. That's the first account that we know of at this point. But it's also not the first account at all we know that had been frozen. There's been a TD Bank account that was affiliated to the two personal bank accounts where the GoFundMe money was headed. That's about $1 million there, as well as $4 million that was raised through direct donations. That was frozen last week. So the rule of thumb here is that if the authorities, meaning the police, believe you are raising money or you are contributing to this protest somehow, they now have, through this declaration, the ability to share that information with the banks. The banks are then obligated, because they know, according to the police, that this money is intended for a crime, meaning mischief on the streets of Ottawa. They are now obligated to freeze that funding.
Yeah, and do not need a court order to do so. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland saying yesterday that they were following the money. You know, you showed us that graph earlier, a lot of American contributions, but who are the biggest donors so far?
The biggest donors include a New Brunswick businessman. He gave about $75,000 and confirmed that to us yesterday. A London, Ontario lawyer who gave about $25,000 US. Again, talking to us. These are people who find common cause with the protesters. In the States, the two largest donors that we talked to there one was a cryptocurrency businessman who didn't really respond to why, just sent us a meme of a cartoon person being injected with needles with the caption, "I hope the government lets us out to play today." That gives you a sense of the political leanings there. A man with the same name as an American billionaire. But the largest donation, which we had, last week we did a study on this using scrape data that we obtained ourselves and noticed that the largest donation was $215,000 American dollars. I had hoped that the Give, Send, Go leak would provide more insight into who gave that money. But that didn't happen. What we see in the data is just a note that says processed but not recorded, which means that even within Give, Send, Go, there is some anonymity for the largest donor to the Freedom Convoy. And to help you understand why that's such a concern to Canadian authorities is our anti-money laundering legislation is intended to allow the government to look at large and suspicious transactions and have some intelligence about where this money is coming from. If you are able to donate $200,000, that's more than 20 times the threshold for disclosing to FINTRAC, internationally to an agency outside of Canada, outside of the reach of Canadian laws. It gets pooled in with a number of other donations, grassroots, politically motivated, whatever, and then given in a lump sum to a Canadian bank account. It's impossible to trace that source. We don't know whether it's come from a grassroots supporter, a supporter with political intentions, or somebody much more nefarious. It's impossible to know. And the idea that that has happened once that we could find may have happened many other times, that there are many other possible sources of funding for this protest. That's one of the things that really has Canadian authorities worried.
Well, that's one of the things that they'll be checking with the Emergencies Act and trying to work through that piece. John Woodward, great data mining. Thanks so much for joining us on Your Morning.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.